Hey guys, welcome to the Materialize CSS crash course. This is going to be similar to my Bootstrap and Foundation crash course where we go through and we look at the framework and we basically manually type out the elements and really look at the class names and study, what's available with this framework. So Materialize CSS is basically like a responsive front-end framework like Bootstrap, and it's based off of Google's Material Design, which is a whole new can of worms in itself. It's not something that we're going to really get into. There's certain principles and guidelines that are used. It was created back in 2014, I believe, and it's what Google is trying to use for all their UIs, all their user interfaces, and elements and stuff. So we're not going to get too much into that. That's something that I'll bring up in a later video. But we're going to really just dive into this Materialize CSS. I really like it. I like the look of it. I think it looks a little better than Bootstrap, and it has some really cool components. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. It may be a two-parter because I do also want to look at the JavaScript widgets, but I don't think I'll be able to fit all of that into this video. So that's what we're going to be doing. Let's go ahead and get started. This video is sponsored by Dev Mountain. If you're interested in learning web development, iOS, or UX design, Dev Mountain is a 12-week design and development bootcamp intended to get you a full-time job in the industry. To learn more, visit devmountain.com or click the link in the description below. Alright guys, I went ahead and shut the minicam off because it was getting in the way of some of the markups, so we're just going to do without it for this video. Now this is the documentation or the official website, materializecss.com, and if we go to get started, this is going to tell us how we can set up Materialize. Now you can do a few different things. You can build from source, so you can use Sass and all that, but that gets kind of complicated, and I want this to be more about the actual look and design, not so much compiling code and working with it inside of a real production project. So we're just going to use the CDN here to include it. Now if we scroll down a little more, you'll see that there's an HTML setup area that gives you the head, body tags, all that. It brings in material icons, which is kind of like Font Awesome. They have their own set of icons. So what we're going to do is just copy this whole thing right here, and then I'm going to go into my text editor. I'm using Atom, and I have a folder called Materialize Sandbox, and then just one index HTML file. That's all we're going to need for this video. And we're just going to paste that in like that. Alright. Now this here is actually including Materialize from a CSS folder, and I don't want to do that. We're going to use the CDN. Same thing with the JavaScript down here. So let's go back to that page, and we're going to go up to where it says CDN. It's for Content Delivery Network. It's basically just a remote version of the file. So let's grab that, and we're going to go and paste that in right here. We're going to replace this. Okay, and we're going to also do that for the JavaScript, which is available right here. Alright, and you'll need this JavaScript file for any of the widgets, which we'll probably get to in a different video. Alright, but we just want to put that here. And it actually depends on jQuery as well, so that's why they have the jQuery CDN right here. Now, like I said, or at least I think I said, this isn't going to be an actual template like a real project. It's going to be a sandbox where we look at the different aspects, the different classes, all that stuff. This is actually my second time trying to make this video because initially I typed everything out manually by hand and it just took way too long. So I will do mostly typing, but for the stuff that's really long, I'm going to be doing copying and paste, and then I'll just kind of explain it. Alright, so I just don't want this to be too long. Now I'm using Atom Live Server to view my index.html file on my local host, but of course you can just open it up in your browser. But I'm going to go ahead and go Atom Live Server Start Server. And if you want to install this, it's the one by Jazz Chen, which you can look up in the settings. Alright, so that's running, and if you do a Control U, you'll see all of our source code. Let's go ahead and go back to our editor here, and I'm just going to add a title in the head real quick. So let's say title, and I'll just say Materialize Sandbox. Okay, and in the body here, we're first going to put a div with the class of container. Okay, and I'm using Emmet. You'll see if I do div.container and then tab, it's going to give us a class of container. If I put number sign container, it would give us an ID. Okay, I would highly suggest Emmet for faster coding. All right, now a container is going to do the same thing as it would in Bootstrap. It's just going to kind of push everything into the middle, add a margin auto, make it responsive, and so on. All right, now first thing we're going to start with is going to be colors. So let's put an H1 here, and I just want to describe each area that we're going to do. So for the colors, we're going to use a div, and I'm going to give this a class of red. Okay, now these color classes can go on anything. It doesn't have to be a div. You can add it to a button, absolutely anything. Okay, but for now, this is going to be a div with color class. All right, and if we save that and we go to our browser, you'll see we have the div with color class, and it has this red background that spans across the whole thing. All right, now if you have, let's say, a color that's dark and you want to change the text color, you can easily do that as well. All right, so to do that, let's go ahead and say white dash text. All right, and if we save that and take a look, you'll see now the text is white. It doesn't have to be white or black. It can be absolutely any color. Okay, now as far as the colors that are available, if you go to CSS color and go down here, you'll see all the different, you'll see the color palettes. Not only can you use a bunch of different colors, but you can also lighten them and you can darken them. Okay, so for instance, we can do lighten 1 through lighten 5. 1 being the darker, 5 being the lighter. Okay, we can also do darken. So let's go ahead and try that. Where are we? I'm just going to copy this. Let's do a couple more divs here. So that's red. Let's make this one blue, and we'll make this one deep purple. Okay, you have a wide range of colors. So let's just see what that looks like. All right, so that's what it looks like. Let's say we want this purple to be a little lighter. So we can go back and we can attach a class called lighten, and let's do lighten 3. And let's also change the color of the text. We'll say blue text. Okay, if we go look here, now we have a light purple background with some blue text. And in addition to lighten, of course, we can do darken. So let's say this blue we want to darken. We'll do darken 2 and save that, and now you can see that blue is a little darker. All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We're going to use color classes as we go, but let's now take a look at buttons. All right, I'm just going to put a label here. I want this to be kind of a good reference for you guys to be able to go back to. All right, so let's see. Let's put in a button, and we're going to give it a class of btn. Okay, and in here we'll just say read more for the text. Let's see what that looks like. So this is your standard button, and you can see it has a very material, designy look. It kind of comes off the page a little bit, has the shadow, very clean. This is the kind of the style that Google's going for with this material design, and you'll see that throughout this video. Now another cool thing that we can do is we can add click effects to our buttons. So right now if we click this or if we hover over it, it's just a standard button, no special effect. But if we go and we add to it, so let's just copy this and put another one in, and then we're going to add to the class, we're going to add waves dash effect, and let's see what that does. So now when I click it, you'll see that we get this kind of wave effect. Now what's really nice is when we click in the middle, you'll see it kind of shoots outward. If I click over here, it goes to the left. If I go over here, it goes to the right. So it depends on where you click it as to the effect that it's going to give you, which is really cool. All right, we also have a waves light class we can use, and let's check that out. And you see that it's just, I guess it's brighter. Seems to have the same effect. It's just a lighter visibility. Okay, we can also make these buttons larger if we want. So if I were to grab this, and we can paste in a class called btn-large, and if we look at that, you'll see that it gets a lot bigger. We can also add a disabled class. So if we say disabled, that's going to gray the button out and make it so that we can't use it. All right, now as far as colors go, what's really nice is we can use absolutely any color we want. We don't have to stick to For instance, Bootstrap has button primary, button success, all that stuff. We can just throw a color in there. So if I were to take, let's grab the large one and paste that in, and then just say red, and take a look. You see now we have a red button. We don't need any special danger or alert class or anything like that. And not only do we have access to the color, but we can also change the lighten or darken. So if we were to say, actually let's do darken, we'll say darken 3, and then let's do white text. Actually, I think it was white text, but you can do that as well. Okay, so what I'll do is just copy, let's see, we'll just copy this, and we'll put a bunch of different colors in. Alright, so let's make this one blue, make this one green, purple, I think we can do black, and let's do yellow. Alright, now where yellow is a really light color, and by default the text is going to be white, you may want to do black text. Alright, and of course we can do lighten and darken. Let's say lighten 2 for the purple, and let's take a look. And you can see all the different colors we get and all the different shades. Alright, so very, very customizable. Now we can also add icons to our buttons. So let's grab this large one here. And for icons, all we would have to do is go in here and put an I class, or I'm sorry, an I tag with a class of material-icons. And then we just want to put a class in here to align it. I'm going to align it to the left. And what's cool about this is instead of putting the actual class for the icon, you just put it right in between the tags. So let's say we wanted the cloud icon. With something like Font Awesome, you would do like FA-cloud. But with this Materialize, you can put the actual icon name inside of the tag. And it's not going to show up. The text won't show up. The icon will. So if we go and we look, you'll see now we have that cloud icon. Let's actually change the color of that button as well. So we'll change it to, let's say, brown. Alright, so now we're going to look at our floating buttons. So let me see, I'm just going to add a comment here just to tell us that this is the container closing, because I don't want to go outside of it. Alright, and then let's put, let's see, I'm going to put a comment, and let's say floating button. Because I don't want to overwhelm the page with H1, so I'll just put a comment for now. And we're going to put an A tag here, and we're going to give this a class of btn-floating, and I'm also going to make it red, and let's also make it large. Alright, we'll just put a number sign in there. And let's see, inside here we're not going to put text, we're going to put an icon, so let's say I, and I'm going to give this a class of large, and also material icons. And for the icon itself, let's do add, which will be a plus sign. Alright, if we go back, this is it right here. This is the floating button. Okay, which looks kind of cool. Now, we can also do a fixed action button, which is really nice. We can take one of these and float it, like, for instance, down here, and then we can actually hover over it and we can have other buttons appear. So let me show you what I mean. And this is something that you don't see with something like Bootstrap. So let's see, we'll say fixed action button. And this is actually going to be a div. And I'm going to give this a class of fixed-action-btn. And then in here we'll put a floating button, just like we did here. I'll actually take this same one, except I'm going to change the name of it, of the icon, to mode_edit. So this would be good for something like a UI for a blog post backend, where you have options to, you know, publish the post or edit or attach a file, things like that. So underneath this, we're going to put a UL, and let's put an LI with an A tag, and we'll give this a class of btn. Actually, we'll just take one of these. We'll take this floating button, and just put it right in there. Okay, and we're just going to change the color. I'm going to change it to yellow, and then change the icon from add to insert chart. And you can get all these icon names in the documentation. Alright, and then we'll copy that, paste in a couple more. So for this one, let's make it blue, and let's give this the icon of format underscore quote. Okay, this one we'll make green, and for the icon, let's do publish, which is like a pencil or something, I think. And then for this one, let's do red, or let's do orange. And for the icon, let's do attach file. Alright, and let's save and see what we get with this. Okay, so down here you see the pencil icon. If I go and I hover over it, look at that. That is pretty cool. Alright, now in addition to these buttons, we have flat buttons. So let's see, let's go back here, and I'm going to go right here and put a comment. We'll say flat button. And that's going to be an A tag, and we'll give it a class of waves effect. Let's give it a class of waves dash teal, and let's give it a class of btn dash flat. And we'll just say button. Alright, so what that does, it gives us a button that doesn't have a background initially, but when we go and hover over it, we get that gray background that fades in. Okay, so very clean looking. So that's going to be it for buttons. Let's move on to look at some helper classes. Okay, helper classes have to do with things like alignment, you know, displaying and hiding content, things like that. So we're going to go right here, and let's put an H1, and we'll say helpers. And first we'll look at some alignment classes. Okay, so let's see, we're going to put a div here, and then in the div let's put an H5, and I'm going to give this a class of left align. And in here let's just say this aligns to the left, and then we'll just copy this, and we're going to do a right, and let's do a center align as well. Okay, we can take a look at that, and there we go. So we have left, center, and right. So pretty easy. We also have quick float classes. So let's do a div, let's give it a class of left. We'll say left float. And as you probably guessed, we can do right float as well. Okay, and then when you do this, when you do a right or left float, you want to clear it. Okay, so it actually uses the same class as Bootstrap, which is clear fix. Alright, so if we save that, take a look, and you can see left float, right float. Now we're starting to get to the bottom of the page here, and we're going to have to scroll. So what I'm going to do is put a div that gives us a height of 500 pixels, just so you're not looking at the bottom of the screen. So let's see, we're going to go under the container here, and let's do a div. We'll give it a style. Let's give it a style of height 500 pixels. Save that, and that should push it up a little bit. There we go. Alright, so let's see, the next thing we're going to look at are classes to hide content based on how big the screen is or what device you're on. So let's go under the clear, and let's say hide content. So first we have a div with the class of hide, and let's say hidden for all devices. So if we go and we try to look at this, we're not going to see it because it's hidden no matter what size the screen is or what device you're on. Alright, we also have a div with the class of hide on small only. So hide on small only. And what this does is it's going to be hidden for mobile devices. Okay, small screens only. And then we have a bunch of other ones too, just to save a little time. I'm going to paste them in. So hide on med only is hidden for tablets only. We also have med and down, which is going to be for tablets and smaller. Med and up, which will be tablets and higher. And then on large only will be hidden for desktop big screens. So if we save that and we go to our sandbox here, you can see all these divs here. And if I were to, let's make this smaller. Now if I were to bring this down to a tablet size, you'll see it changes. So now this is hidden for mobile devices and desktops. It's only displayed, these are only displaying for tablets. If we go down to mobile, you'll see hidden for tablets and higher, and hidden for desktops. Alright, so it's really handy to be able to show and hide things based on what device the user's using. Because you may have a lot of content squished into one place, but if you're on a mobile screen, you're not going to want to show all of that because it's going to be really crammed in there. Alright, so that can be very helpful. Another thing we can do is truncate text. So let's say we have a paragraph, and I'm just going to put some dummy text in. If you're using Atom, you can type in lorem tab, and it'll give you all this sample content. And if we were to look at this as is, you'll see we have, actually, you know what, let's make this let's do it H4. It can be on any element. Okay, so we have 3 lines of H4. Now let's say we wanted to truncate this. We could do class truncate, and now if we look at it, it's only 1 line. Okay, so it's going to truncate it down to 1 line and then just put these dots at the end. And this is really good for things like blogs, where you want to just show just a portion of the article or the blog post until they click on a button, and then that takes them to the rest. Okay, we also have some effects we can do. Let me just put a comment here. Alright, so let's look at some effects. Now, these can be used on any element, but I'm going to use a div. So first we have hoverable. So let's put a div, and let's see, we're going to make it red, and let's give it white text, and then we're going to put a class of hoverable. Alright, and if we look at that, you'll see if I go over it, it kind of gets this shadow and kind of pops off the page. And you can put that on anything. You can put that on a button or whatever. We also have one called pulse. So I'm going to just copy that, and let's change this to pulse. We'll make this blue, and let's say pulse content, and then change the class of hoverable to pulse. And now if I save that and we go back, what happened? Oh, this should be blue. And as you see, that's going to pulse on its own. I don't even have to do anything to it. Now this doesn't look very good, but if you were to put this on a button that, let's say you want it to drive a user's attention to, maybe a buy now button or something, you could do that. Alright, I don't want that to keep going, so I'm just going to put a underscore before the pulse. Next thing we'll look at is shadows. Okay, material design has kind of a lot of shadows in its elements. And there's basically 5 different depths we can do. So let's say we want class, and let's do z-depth-1. We'll do the same thing here, and we'll save that. And now if we take a look, you'll see that this div is now has a shadow behind it, okay, with the depth of 1. Now we can actually do 1 through 5, so I'm going to copy that. 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll just change these up. And it just changes the different level of the shadow depth. Alright, so you can see that this one has just a little, and then this one down here has a lot. Alright, and we can change the color of one of these if we wanted to. Let's say red. And you can see it still has the shadow. Alright, another thing we have is flow text. Okay, so with flow text, let's just put a paragraph here, and let's say lorem tab. Now, what this does is it does a couple things. It makes the text more prominent. It makes it bigger. If we were to look at this now, you'll see it just looks like that. But if we add the class of flow text and then look at it, you'll see that it gets much bigger and prominent. Not only that, it makes it very responsive. You'll see if I go smaller, the text, the font will actually change. Okay, you can see the font's getting smaller as I move the screen down, which is really nice. Okay, and I just think that some of these things are really cool. They're not common with you know, some of the other frameworks. Let's see, now we're going to look at some stuff with images. Okay, responsive images. So let's put in an image tag, and let's do, I'm just going to grab a link to an image here, just a sample image, and paste it in. And let's see, we have a class of responsive image. That's actually what we want. So let's save it, take a look, and you'll see we have this image, and if I start to move this screen down, it's very responsive. Okay, it'll shrink with the page. So whether you're on mobile view or whatever, it's going to look good. Okay, another thing we can do is we can make images circular just by adding a class of circle. Okay, which is common in frameworks. You'll see we have that in Bootstrap as well, but just another nice little feature. All right, now we're going to get into navigation. So for navigation, I want to go outside of the container because I want it to go across the whole screen. And let's see, I'm going to start to paste some stuff in just to save some time. So this is a very simple navigation. We have a nav tag, it has a wrapper, and with these navigation menus, we can make them whatever color we want. Okay, another great thing about this framework, we can just make any element we want any color. We're not stuck with, you know, dark or light. So that's really nice. And then we have the logo, okay, which is an A tag with the class of brand logo. And then we have the UL with the class of nav mobile. And then we're aligning it to the right, and we want it to be hidden on medium and down. So what this will do is it'll hide this when you're on a tablet or smaller, okay, because it's going to get in the way. And I'll show you how to create a collapsible menu in a minute. But let's take a look at this. I'm actually going to put a couple line breaks after each menu. Okay, and if we look at that, you'll see that we have the logo aligned to the right, and I'm sorry, the left, and then the UL on the right. Okay, so another thing we could do is align the logo to the right and the UL to the left. So to do that, let's just copy this. All right, and then this will be right logo, so we can just add a class of right and then change this one to left. Let's change the color to red, and there we go. Now if I go smaller, you'll see the UL disappears. Okay, makes it responsive. Now what sucks is we can't see those links at all on mobile devices, and like I said, I'll show you how to fix that in a second. But we can also center the logo. Let's copy that, and let's say center logo. So we can just add in here center, and then we can keep the UL on the left. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Actually, we'll make that green. And there we go. So now we have a centered logo. Now for the drop down, let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is first paste in the nav. Okay, now you can see it's the same thing. We have a nav with the div with the nav wrapper, the brand, the UL. But if you look at this link right, this LI right here, this A tag has a class of drop down button, and then it has a special attribute of data activates. So what it's going to do is it's going to look for a UL with this ID and use that as the drop down. So what I'll do is just paste this in right above the nav, just like that. And you can see that the UL has an ID of drop down 1, just like this. Okay, so this is going to bring down this menu, and it just has a class of drop down content which hides it initially, okay, until you actually click on the drop down. You can also add dividers like this. So let's take a look at that. And you see we have a drop down. If I click it, we get this nice little drop down. Alright, pretty simple. Let's see, we can also put icons and buttons in our navigation. So let's see, just put some line breaks. And I'm going to just grab this real quick. Paste that in. Okay, so we just have, actually we don't need this title here. So for this, same thing, UL, logo, we're just using an I tag in here instead of some text. And let's see, we have a button here, or a link formatted as a button. So let's take a look at that. Okay, and that's what it's going to look like. We have the icon. We can do an icon with text, and we can do a button. Okay, all very easily. Okay, let's look at the search bar. If we want to put a search bar, you can see when I first did this video, I typed all of this out, and it just took forever. It would have been about 2 hours long. So search bar, we have our nav wrapper, we have our form inside the nav wrapper with an input field, which has an input, or a div with the class of input field, input label, and then a close button. Alright, if we look at that, you can see we have a nice looking search bar. Okay, we can close it, goes back to being red. I'm just going to take that H1 out, we don't need that. And then the last thing I'm going to show you to do with the menus is the mobile collapsible menu. Alright, because if you want this to be responsive so that people can actually go to your links even if they're on a mobile device. So let's paste that in. Alright, so basically all we added to this was this right here, this A tag. It has data activates mobile demo. It has a class of button collapse. We have an icon, a menu icon, and then we have the UL inside there. So you're going to have two sets of menus here. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. So this is what it looks like. Now if I go down, if I make this smaller, you'll see we have this button. Click that. Whoops. Why isn't that working? Why the hell isn't that working? Did I include the JavaScript? Yeah. Oh, you know what? We have to initialize it. That's right. We have to initialize it in the JavaScript. So if we go to, let's see, components, where is it? Navbar. And let's see, right here, initialization. So we just need to throw this in the JavaScript. So let's grab that. We'll go down here and let's put in some script tags and just paste that in. Alright, and that should work, hopefully. Reload, and let's go down to our menu. There we go. So we get this cool sidebar that opens, which I actually like better than the actual drop down. Alright, so that's enough for the navs. You can see we have a lot of different options here, and that's not even all of them. But the next thing we're going to look at are lists, which are actually called collections in Materialize. Okay, they're called list groups in Bootstrap. So I want to open up another container after all these navs. So we'll say div class container, and let's do collection slash list. Alright, and I'm actually going to put an H1 here as well. Collections list. Alright, so basically we just want a UL, and we want to give it a class of collection. And then inside there we're going to have LIs that are going to have a class of collection-item. Okay, we'll just say item 1. And then we'll copy that. And we'll put a couple more. Let's say item 2, 3, and 4. Alright, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so this is what the collection looks like. Very similar to a list group in Bootstrap. Now, if we want to do links, let's say we wanted it to be a menu, then we could have a div with the class of collection, and then we could have A tags inside with a class of collection item. Okay, so here let's say this would be link 1, and we could do link 2, 3, and 4. Alright, so now we have links, and you'll see when I hover over one, it gets that darker background. Okay, we can also use collections with headers. So for instance, let's copy this UL right here. Let me just put a comment here. Say link alright, and then this will be with header. So we can just add to this UL right here, we can add a class called with-header. And then what we would do is we would make the first one right here, we would make this the header by putting in, let's say, an H4, and we'll say header. Alright, and then we'll change that to 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then that's what it would look like. So this is the header. Another thing we could do is an icon list. Now this is actually a lot of markup, so I'm going to paste this in. So let's go right here. Let me just tab that over. Alright, so this would be an icon collection. UL with the class of collection. Same thing, LIs have the class of collection item. Also avatar. And then what I did is I put an icon here. So that's a image of a folder or an icon of a folder. It has a span with the title, and then it has a paragraph and then a link. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so kind of looks like a mobile list, like something you see on a mobile app. Okay, so that's going to be it for the collections. Next thing we're going to look at is pagination. So let's actually put an H1 here. We'll say pagination. Okay, so we'll have a UL with the class of pagination, and then each LI we're going to give a class of waves-effect. Alright, now let's see. I'm just going to paste these in. Now usually one of these would be disabled. For instance, if we're on page 1, the previous button is going to be disabled. So let's go right here and let's say li class disabled, and we'll have a link in here. So we'll say a, and let's see, no class here. Oops. Alright, and then that would be, let's say, an icon. So i.class material icons, and then let's make this a chevron dash left or underscore left. Alright, so that's like the previous link. Alright, and then you can make one of these active. So for instance, this one here, let's give this, actually let's go right above it, and we'll say li with the class of active, and we'll put a link in here, and let's put a 1, and then we'll do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see what that looks like so far. Okay, so let's see, these actually don't have links in them, that's why it looks funny. Alright, so that looks pretty cool. And we probably want a next one as well, just like we did with this one, with the previous. So we'll go ahead and paste that in, and we'll change it to a chevron right. And let's not make this one disabled. We'll do the waves effect. Alright. And there we go, get some pagination. So we also have breadcrumbs. Let's go down here and put another H1. We'll say breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs kind of give you a like a directory structure of pages, shows your parent and child pages and so on. So that would be a nav, and in here we'd have a div with the class of navwrapper, just like the navigation menus do. And then let's do div, and I'm going to use a grid system class here. I'm going to say call and then s12. Oops, it should be .s12. And then in here, let's put a link with the class of breadcrumb. And then this will be, let's say, first. Okay, then we'll have first, second, and third. All right, let's take a look at that. And there we go, there's a breadcrumb. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at are cards. Now, the cards actually have a lot of markup, so I'm going to do some copying and pasting. Hopefully that doesn't really bother you guys. So let me just grab this real quick. All right, so these cards, they have, I mean, they can be very basic with just you know, some text with a border, or they can have headers and footers and links and all kinds of stuff. So this has a class of card, and you can give it a color class if you want. This one's blue-gray and it's darkened. And then inside the card class, we can have a card content class, which of course you can add classes to. And then here we have the card title. It's in a span with the class of card title. It has a floating button here, and it has an icon. Well, that's inside the button or the link. And then we have some text, and then we have this card action, which is where we can put some links. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so looks pretty nice. You'll see this is the floating button right here. It kind of hangs down here. And then we have our links. Okay, we also have image cards. So let me just grab that real quick. Let me just put a comment right here, because this is the container. Alright, so we'll paste this in. This is an image card, which basically just has an image, and then the title, and then the content, and then the actions. So let's look at that. Okay, that looks pretty nice as well. I mean, I think this stuff looks better than Bootstrap. Is it a little more complicated as far as the markup? It's yeah, a little bit, but I mean, that's, you know, this stuff is pretty quick. You'll learn it pretty quick. We also have horizontal cards. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we just have an H2 with the class of header. We have the card class, and we just added this horizontal. We have the image, and we have this card stacked class with a card content div, and then our actions at the bottom. Okay, and that's what it looks like. It has the image on the side instead of on the top. So pretty nice. And then we have card panels. By the way, this stuff is all in the documentation, so don't worry about remembering this. But I figured that this document will be nice for you to have if you want to just throw any of this stuff in your site. Alright, so a card panel is pretty simple. It just has a class of card panel. We can add a color to it if we want, and then we just have some content in here. So let's look at that. Alright, which is similar to a well in Bootstrap 3. Bootstrap 4 actually uses cards, and it's very similar to this as far as the markup goes. We also have something called chips, which are kind of like tags. When you see like a blog post and you have a bunch of tags at the bottom, this is similar to that. So we have a div with the class of chip. We have whatever text you're going to put in, and then just an icon to close the tag, all right, or the chip. Okay, so that's what it looks like, and you'll notice if I actually click the X, it goes away. So pretty nice. So now we're going to get into forms. Okay, and forms, the form I'm not going to copy and paste because it's actually something that you'll probably use quite a bit. All right, let's put an H1 as well. Alright, so for forms, let's open up a form tag. Okay, we don't need an action. We're not actually submitting it. And we're going to have a div and this is going to have a class of input field. And if you're used to Bootstrap, you can kind of think of this as form group, okay, the class of form group. And then we're going to put an input, and let's give this an ID of, we'll say name, and then we're going to put in a label, and let's say for name, and then name. Okay, I'm also going to give this a class of active. Alright, so that's one field. Let's take a look at that. So this is what the forms look like with Materialize, and I think they look pretty nice. And what's pretty cool is when you click in here, you'll see that the label actually shrinks up and this thing changes color. So look, I don't know, I like that effect. I think it looks better than just having, you know, the white input box. So what I'll do is copy this, and let's put another field in here, and we'll make this ID email, and let's make this type email as well. Okay, we'll change that, and I'll change the for to email. So what's nice about this is we can actually add a class to our input here, and we can add the class validate. And then if we go back to our form, and you know, we put in our name, whatever, we put in email, and if we don't enter an actual email address and we try to click out, you'll see that it gets this red line. It's actually, it has some built-in you know, client-side form validation, which is pretty cool. And obviously if I put a real email in there, then it lets us. Okay, turns green. Let's see what else. Let's put a text area. So this will be, let's say, we'll just say ID text area. And this is not going to be an input. Text area, which also has a closing tag. For the label, we'll just say text area. Okay, we can take a look at that. Oh, you know what? This should actually have an extra class. Materialize dash text area. There we go. And you'll see we can actually do multiple lines, and as we make this, you know, more lines, it gets pushed down. So some nice effects with this, with the Materialize forms. All right, so another thing we have is preloaders, which are kind of like progress bars in Bootstrap. So let's actually put an H1 here, and we'll say preloaders. Okay, so we're going to have a div and give it a class of progress. And then in here, we're going to have a div with the class of determinate. Determinate, like that. Okay, and then we can give this a style property and then give it a width of a percentage, and that'll be, you know, how filled the progress bar is. So let's say style, and we'll set this to, whoops. We'll set this to width and set that to 70%. All right, so let's see what that gives us. And there we go. So you can see it's filled 70%. If I were to change this to, let's say, 40%, you'll see that now it's only 40%. Now we can also grab this, and then we'll paste that in and change this to indeterminate, and then take away the width here, or the style. And what that'll give us is something like this. So it has a little animation to it. Now we also have circular preloaders, which they have a little bit more markup. So what I'll do is just copy it and paste it in. Okay, so this is a circular preloader. You can see it has a preloader wrapper. We're giving this one a class of big and active. Then we have a spinner layer. We can change the color of the spinner. And then we have some other classes in here. So let's see what that gives us. All right, so that gives you kind of this spinner graphic, which is pretty cool. All right, now I want to get into something that's very important, and that's the grid system. Okay, whenever you learn a framework, the grid system is very important, and they're pretty easy, especially this one. This is pretty easy to use. So let's go ahead and go down here, still above the container. And let's put an H1, and we'll say grid system. Alright, so let's create a div here, and I'm going to give it a class of row. You guys have seen that before if you're familiar with Bootstrap or pretty much any framework with a grid. And then the way that we do this is we'll have a div with the class of call, and then also the class of, let's say, S1. So that's going to be a one column row. Alright, and then in here I'm just going to put a card so that I can give it a background. So let's say div, and we'll give it a class of card panel, and let's also give it a class of gray. Okay, and then I'll just put a 1 in here. So this is a one column div, and it's a 12 column base. So we're going to go ahead and copy this, and we're going to paste it in 11 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 12 of them. All right, I'm just going to change the number here. 9, 10, 11, and 12. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so you can see that we have one column divs 12 across. So the class name's pretty easy. We just need call and then S and the number of rows that it's going to take up. Okay, or the number of columns. So let's do another one under it. We'll do div with the class of row, and let's do an 8 column and a 4 column. That's pretty common, you know, if you have a main area and then you have a sidebar. So we'll say div, and we'll give this a class of call and also S8. Okay, and I'm just gonna grab one of these cards. And this is actually going to be what, 8 columns, so I'll grab this. And then let's do a 4 column. So 4, 4. Okay, and if we take a look at that, you'll see that we have basically the main area and then the sidebar. Okay, let's do 3 4 column divs. So I'm just going to copy this, and then we'll just change that to 4, 4, and then we'll paste in one more. Okay, as long as it equals 12, and there we go. Okay, and you can do any combination that you want. Now we can also offset columns. So let's go right here and we'll say offsetting. So I'm going to do a div with the class of row, and in this row let's do div with the class of call and S12. And let's see, we'll just grab one of these panels. Okay, so this right here, we'll say this div is 12 columns. And then under it, let's actually just copy it. And then under it, we're going to put a 6 column div, so we'll change that to 6. And I want this to be offset by 6, so it should be pushed over. So all we have to do is add in offset dash S6. Alright, and we'll say this div is 6 columns offset by 6. So if we look at that, there we go. So it's a 6 column div, but it's offset these 6 columns right here. Alright, and obviously you can do any ratio that you want. We can also change the order with push and pull, which is kind of nice. So if we have a row, and inside here we have, let's say, call S7, we'll just do that, and then let's grab one of these panels. We'll say this div is 7 calls wide, and then let's see, we'll grab this again, and then this one's going to be S5. We'll say this is 5 columns wide. So let's take a look at that. So we have 7 column and 5 column. Now let's say we want these to be, we want to switch these, but we don't want to change the markup. We just want to change up the classes to switch them. So we can use push and pull. All right, so for this one, for the 7 column, we're going to do push dash S5, and then for this one, we're going to do pull, which is going to go the other way, S7. Okay, and then if we go and reload, Now you'll see the 5 is over here and the 7 is over here. So we switched it, okay? Much like Flexbox ordering. Alright, so I think that's going to be it, guys. So you can see this looks pretty nice, all this stuff. If you can build a nice UI with this framework, it's pretty nice. I personally think it looks a little better than Bootstrap, and it looks a little more unique. So if you guys want to use this, I will be doing a video actually building either a UI or a website using Materialize. I may also do a part 2 where we look at the JavaScript widgets, because we haven't even gotten into that. There's sliders, there's collapse menus, there's modals, there's all types of shit that is available with JavaScript as well, and it's pretty easy. So be on the lookout for that. I'll try and see what I can do about that. But thanks for watching, guys, especially if you stuck through this long. I know this was kind of a long video. Hopefully this cheat sheet or sandbox, whatever you want to call it, helps you in the future, and you can look back to it and you can pick and choose things you want to use. All right, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.